Hi, I'm Charlie Foskett. We're here today in this beautiful leafy enclave of Hertfordshire to interview and talk to a very special lady. This particular lady was, back in her day, the biggest thing that hit the British folk music scene. She even spent most of her time in everyone's living room through her own 5-year television series. Come this way. Watch the door. And through the living room of the troubadour, full of troubadourousness. I don't even know if troubadourousness is a word. Come through this way, we'll go straight to the music room. And through we come. Watch your head, watch the button, don't trip over. And here we are, she's not around. As you can tell by the gallery, we're talking about none other than Julie Felix. I don't know if she's around. Anyway, if she's not around, maybe I could nick this. Probably not a good idea. She'd probably never miss it, actually. Julie Felix.
Yes, sir.
Just speaking at the end of that.
That's for a drum.
That's for a drum.
It's a very nice.
Testing 2, 3 in a bit. I think we should start off with a jam for the viewers. I want to play the
Fruit bowl.
The fruit bowl. And I'd like to introduce you to this instrument. This instrument is played with that which fell on the floor.
It's something I got in Kenya when I went out there in the 60s.
Okay, this is
and that too. So
this is going to be very special.
Okay.
So, do you want to bring
What
me
are you
in, or should I bring you in? Okay, here we go. 2, 3, 4. Good, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, good.
I've never played this.
I think I'm a bit out of tune with you.
I think it'll be an E.
Can you tune up to that? Oh my goodness.
I think we'll.
You eventually got your own television series, Once More with Felix. Tell us about that.
Well, as you know, I did the Frost Report, which was that's a whole story in itself. I don't know. But
Tell us a little bit about the Frost Report.
Well,
in 2 seconds.
Okay. Well, I was staying with a friend in the King's Road. I was sleeping on the floor, on the third floor, flat, and David Frost had a flat on the 5th floor. So one day when I was coming down, I went to get in the lift, and I think I've told you this before, but anyway.
You're telling them.
Oh, when I got in the lift, it was David was in the lift already, and it was a very slow lift, very rickety. So by the time we got to the ground floor, we'd had quite a long conversation. And he said, "What are you doing? Where are you going?" And I'd never met him before, but David always acted like he knew you. And I said I was going for the launch of my first record album that I just made with Decca. And I said, "Why don't you come?" And he said, "Okay." And I told him where it was. I never thought in a million years he would come. But he did come. And from there he took me to meet Jimmy Gilbert, who was, and the two of them were planning a show called The Frost Report. So anyway, I was asked to be on the Frost Report. As I told you before, it was like they had used jazz singers before.
Yeah, you had a jazz singer
auditioning. Millicent Martin.
Oh yes, yes.
She sang on.
Ronnie Carroll.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
I remember them well.
It was before I actually came to England. Not that I'm that young, but I just didn't come to England before that. So, and each program was going to have a certain theme, or a focus. And they asked me if I knew any songs about education, and I remembered a song by Tom Paxton saying, "What did you learn in school today, dear little?" So anyway, the long story that they finally decided to go with a folk singer rather than a jazz singer. So for 2 years I did the Frost Report, and then
2 years.
yeah.
Wow.
Well, not full. I mean, it was only so many
Yeah.
shows in each year, and then I used to warm up the audience. It was a live show, and it was at Shepherd's Bush, and I would sing songs to get the audience sort of like, so they weren't just sitting there while they lined up everything. And then after that, Billy Cotton Jr. asked me if I would do my own series. And he introduced me to David Attenborough, who was beginning to do BBC Two.
Oh, lovely.
He's a lovely, lovely man. He was so nice. And
still is.
He still is,
Yeah.
yes. As a matter of fact, he asked for me to be on a television show, but I was out of the country, so that was sad that I couldn't do that. But because I haven't seen him in a long time. But anyway, they were talking about how to start BBC Two, and so David and Neil Shand talked about how the series would pull together, and they decided on the name. Well, they gave me a lot of choices, and I liked Once More with Felix. I always like a play on words, and it was first series in color, so everybody was like scrambling around, looking at your skin and seeing if the lights were all right, and it was very exciting time, and so I ended up. Stanley Dorfman was the director, and he was a wonderful director, and.
You had some great guests on there.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah.
Can you remember like the first guests on the
First guest was Josh White.
Yeah.
He was wonderful, and I had Tim Buckley and Dusty Springfield, John Renbourn, the Four Tops. You know, so it wasn't only folk music. It was, and I had Spike Milligan because in the first series I had people that not only musicians but people that spoke. And Jackie McGowan, a wonderful, bless his soul, actor. He acted in a lot of Samuel Beckett plays, and he was wonderful. So, and I liked that idea. And eventually, in the second two series, we just did music. But in the first series, we had people that spoke.
What was it like working with Spike
Oh,
Milligan? I mean,
it was wonderful. We got together at my flat, and he came in and he went, I don't know what. I said, what's the matter? He says, I'm trying to figure out how to get this wall out of here. It was just so funny. And then when I was on the show, when he was on the show, he said, how do you feel? I said, oh, okay. He said, yeah, you feel pretty good. He was just doing those things off. And that
doing him.
Big heart. Big heart, yeah. Bless his soul. He wrote the sleeve notes on one of my albums, and he was really a very soulful, sensitive person, you know, even though he was like funny, but his humor was on the edge all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I remember all the days of the Goons and all the rest of it. They were fantastic. There was a point in the 80s where I was going to get to work with them. I was really looking forward to it, and then the dates got screwed up, and he wanted to go and save Wales, and I ended up working with Bill Oddie, who was, you know, great fun to work with. But I didn't get to work with Spike Milligan.
But it was a wonderful experience, and I have the deepest affection for the BBC. You know, they're talking now about like cutting it back and doing this and the other, and they really took chances with me and with other people, and it's just a wonderful place where people from all over the world come to train.
That's right.
And I have a special place in my heart for the BBC. It's treated me very well.
And long may it be the BBC.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and she's 190 years old. I mean, you know.
193.
Oh, 193. Sorry. Yeah, tell me more about the guests on your show. So, sorry to hop on about the show, but it was great. It was a great time.
Oh yeah, I mean it was. Well, one time we had, there's an Indian player called Ali Akbar Khan, and it wasn't. It was his brother or cousin or something. I can't remember. A wonderful sitar player, and so he was playing, and Stanley said, he said, how long do you want me to play? And he said, about 8 minutes. So you know how the Indian music goes, and and he had a tabla player and a what do you call that thing that just does the
Tambora.
tambora.
Just the drone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
tambora.
tambora. And so he was playing, and so they were playing, and he was playing, and then at the end of it, and he had his watch down there, and he went, it just stopped. Because, I mean, obviously...
That's 8 minutes.
Yeah, it would have taken all day to do that. And John Lee Hooker, when he was on, he was a wonderful guy, and he said, "Hey man, am I getting paid for this gig?" And he said, "Yes, you are." And at the end, you know, he just picked up his guitar and walked off. And usually, you know, you stop and you do the thing. He just walked off, and it was magic. It was just beautiful.
John Lee Hooker on your series.
Yeah.
On your television series.
I know.
That's fantastic.
And Richard Harris was on, you know, the actor, and he was singing, what was that song about? MacArthur Park.
MacArthur Park.
Yeah. And Jimmy Webb was in the audience, you know, and
with a wet cake.
Yeah. And Richard Harris was like watching him for every cue because, you know, like a lot of us, we don't know exactly when one bar ends and the other. And we had a 22-piece orchestra with John Cameron. So he was, and he's such a good actor, he would just look and get the cue, but he wouldn't look like he'd just go, oh, it's...
He knew what he was doing.
I can't remember all the stories, but it was
So
beautiful days.
In those days, did you get to tour a lot as well as like
Yeah,
doing
I
the
mean,
show as well?
The show would be like for, I think it was how many weeks did we do a year? Something like 14 weeks or something, and we would do 2 shows in a week. So that left the rest of the year.
You did the Isle of Wight festival as well.
Yeah.
I mean, who was on that bill?
Well, that was Dylan hadn't played for 5 years. I think it was 5 years.
And he was on the bill?
He was the top of the bill. Yeah, people hadn't seen him, and it was really. And Richie Havens was on, and in the audience, you could see down there was John Lennon, Paul McCartney, and George Harrison. I don't know, Ringo didn't show up that day.
At your feet?
Yeah, at my feet.
At your feet.
And there were people as far as the eye could see. It was like terrifying.
It was a big deal. It was, you know, it was the British Woodstock, if you like. It was as big a deal.
It was really, and I was really lucky that time because I'd done my gig and I was waiting to see Dylan, and I was just sort of in my tent or where I was, and Bob Dylan came out, and I had met him once or twice before, just there, but not for a long time, and we just sat and talked, and he was waiting to go on because the band were on before him, and they were going down really well. And Dylan, and everybody had gone over, and it was really late, and he was getting really nervous because he hadn't, you know, played for a while. And so we talked. I don't really remember what we talked about. I was just so moved that I was able to just sit down and talk to Bob Dylan. The beautiful words is a certain kind of poetry that you know, darkness at the break of noon, shadows even the silver spoon, the man-made blade, the child's balloon, eclipses both the sun and moon. To understand you know too soon, there is no Duncan trying on bing ding again anything. You know,
yeah,
really wonderful.
I've got a friend who did, I think, his first 4 albums, Scarlett Rivera, and I've worked with Scarlett a few times, and I should get her over to play on some of your tracks.
Yeah.
The future tracks we're going to do together. get her over.
Yeah, this is the beginning.
And so Leonard Cohen, you hung out with him in how do I pronounce it?
Hydra.
Hydra.
It's Hydra.
Yes, I would say Hydra.
Yeah, a lot of people do.
Hydra.
Hydra.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Tell me a little bit about Hydra days.
Well, I left the States in the early 60s after I'd been to university, and I took a boat. It took 2 weeks to get across the Atlantic, and we landed. I was with a friend of mine, and she had a brother who lived on the island of Hydra, you could say that. And so it was a funny place to go, but we landed in Greece, and then we went, her brother and his partner took us to see Maria Callas sing Medea, and I was like, I thought I was, you know, in another planet. You know, I'd never been out of the States except in Mexico, so it was, and we'd been sort of punchy from traveling all that way. So we saw her, and then we got in a little kaiki, which is a fishing boat, and went over to Hydra, and it was before the days of package tours and things, so there weren't a lot of foreigners, but the ones that were there were very creative writers and painters, and there was a young poet from Canada, and he used to borrow my guitar, my dad's guitar that he lent me, and he'd sing union songs, and he was writing his first book, and and it was Leonard Cohen, and you know, no one had heard of Leonard Cohen, and 2 years later we were singing on my show, 2 or 3, no, it must have been more than 2 years later, because I was on the Frost Brothers. It was probably about 5 years later.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that he came. It was the first appearance he'd made in England.
It was his first television.
Yeah. And I'm so lucky that that's the clip, that everything's been erased from the series, but
That's sacrilege.
but the clip with Leonard's still there. So that's,
Yeah. I've seen the clip. It's absolutely magic. It really is.
yeah, when we were almost young.
Almost, you're a pair of embryos.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, it was magic. Okay, I think we'll take a little break and we'll come back to this. Julie, thank you very much.
Thank
we'll
you.
come back to this.
Thank you.